Do you think money can buy everything? Nora Delaney, the 25-year-old waitress, blurted out at millionaire Ethan Caldwell, her heart pounding with anger and despair. In the lavish La Lumiere restaurant in Chicago, where the arrogance of the elite weighed heavily on her shoulders, Nora felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice. Every snap of a wealthy patron's fingers felt like a dagger, reminding her of her younger brother, Finn, who was fighting a heart condition. When Ethan quietly slipped a Penthouse key into her pocket, one haunting question arose. Was this her salvation or a trap? All right, my dear audience, get ready for a story that will leave you breathless. Take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see viewers joining us from all around the world. Bronzeville is not a place for big dreams. In their tiny apartment, just enough room for one threadbare armchair and an old Chicago Bulls poster, Nora Delaney folded her restaurant uniform, her eyes glancing over to her younger brother, Finn, who lay sleeping quietly beside the ventilator. He was 17, his heart fragile as if it were shattered from birth, and each beat reminded her that time was slipping away. Nora carried them all: rent, student loans, medical bills, and now a $200,000 surgery to save her brother's life. She worked at La Lumiere, the 2-Michelin-star restaurant where every napkin was folded with white-gloved precision and every diner sat on society's highest pedestal. Tonight, the restaurant gleamed like a golden dream, soft piano music floating through the air and the scent of expensive truffle lingering everywhere. At the center table sat Ethan Caldwell. In real estate circles, his name commanded respect. He sat there, silent yet more commanding than any voice in the room. His silver-gray suit hugged his tall frame, an Audemars Piguet watch sparkled under the chandelier light, and his ice-blue eyes were so cold you wondered if he'd ever known warmth. Ethan's entourage was like a decadent performance-loud laughter, money tossed around like confetti, eyes scanning everyone as if they were mere servants in their domain. One drunken man in the group snapped his fingers and barked, "Girl, bring us another bottle of Pinot Noir." Nora offered a practiced smile she'd perfected after years of serving, but inside, every word cut like a knife. She bowed her head and turned away, gripping the silver tray to hide her trembling hands. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her mother. "Finn's back in the hospital. The doctor says he needs surgery immediately." She didn't read any further. She knew the rest. She didn't need to see the $200,000 figure to understand she was standing on the edge of an abyss. Amid the glittering lights and clinking crystal, she brought the check to Ethan's table. $15,000 for a 2-hour dinner. He glanced at it, signed, and pushed the check back as if tossing a beggar a scrap of paper. No tip, no thank you. Nora stared at the paper, tears stinging her eyes. It wasn't just ingratitude, it was a blow to her pride. For a moment, time froze. The laughter ebbed into silence. As Ethan stood, ready to leave like an Arctic storm, Nora drew a deep breath. Her hand shook, but her voice rang out clear as a bell in a cathedral. "Mr. Caldwell, your money can buy this entire restaurant, but it can't buy manners." The room went cold. A pearl necklace-clad woman gasped, hand to her heart. A man halted mid-bite, his fork suspended in mid-air. Every gaze turned to Norath, small-framed waitress, daring to stand tall before an uncrowned king. Ethan met her eyes. No anger, no surprise, only silence. A silence more terrifying than any shout. Then, without a word, he turned and walked through his entourage as though nothing had happened. Nora stood there, her heart hammering. She knew she'd just sealed her fate, her job, every scrap of security in this world. But in that moment after years of bowing, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. She didn't know if she'd be fired tomorrow. She didn't know where to find $200,000. But one thing was certain. She would never bow again to those who believed they owned the world. And that was the first step to reclaiming herself. When clearing tables, Nora's hand accidentally brushed against something cold beneath the tablecloth. She froze. She gently pulled the fabric aside, and her heart clenched when she saw a small but heavy silver key engraved with an elegantly curling C. Beside it lay a neatly folded note. She unfolded it, the precise handwriting clear. Penthouse A, 900 North Michigan Avenue, NU. Prove me wrong. Nora's heart pounded so loudly she felt the entire restaurant might hear it. What was this? A prank? A threat? Or an invitation? A challenge trap from the very man she had dared confront amid all that luxury and power? She crouched low, scanning the room as if someone might snatch the key away. No one noticed. The music played on. Glasses still clinked. But for Nora, the world was trembling. She tucked the key and note into her apron pocket, her heart racing. Back in her cramped Bronzeville apartment, where the fluorescent light flickered and distant sirens sighed like endless laments, Nora collapsed into the worn armchair. Maya, her roommate and best friend, emerged from the bedroom, still in her rumpled office clothes. "What's wrong?" Maya asked, voice sleepy but eyes sharp as scalpels. Nora said nothing. She pulled out the key and handed Maya the note. Silence fell between them, thick as an unnamed frost. Maya read it, brow furrowing. She twirled the key between her fingers as though it were evidence in a crime. Penthouse A, 900 North Michigan Avenue, NU? Maya raised an eyebrow. Nora, this is the rich playing games. They toss out bait and wait to see who bites. He wants to control you. Maybe, Nora replied, her voice hoarse. But he could also be testing me. Maya rose and wrapped her arms around Nora. I know you're strong, but don't let desperation lead you into the labyrinth of people who think they're gods. Nora nodded. Before she could speak, her phone rang. It was the hospital. She swallowed hard. The doctor's voice crackled through, clinical and cold. Finn's surgery must take place within a month. Otherwise, we can't guarantee his survival. 1 month. Nora dropped the phone and looked at Maya. No words were needed. Maya simply sat beside her and squeezed her hand tighter. All night, Nora tossed on the firm bed and thin blanket. Outside, the city wind whispered through the window, carrying the restless sounds of a place that never sleeps. She stared at the key on the bedside table, gleaming in the streetlight, beckoning, challenging. 900 North Michigan Avenue, NU, ordinary address. The multi-million-dollar penthouses, rooftop parties, and men like Ethan Caldwell, powerful, cold, dangerous, lived there. But Finn had no time, and Shea Waitress, with dark circles under her eyes and fear in her heart, had no choice. The next morning, Nora donned a simple black sweater, tied back her hair, and slipped the key into her jacket pocket. Maya watched from the doorway, worry in her eyes but no protest. At least don't go alone, Maya whispered. Nora gave a small smile. I'm not going for him. I'm going for Finn. And if this is a game, I'll play, but by my own rules. Maya nodded silently. From the moment Nora grasped that key, everything had changed. It was no longer just another evening, no longer just an unpaid meal. It was a door leading to something bigger, more dangerous, and perhaps destiny. The building at 900 North Michigan Avenue, shimmeringly nicknamed the Bloomingdale's Building, towered over Chicago like a declaration of opulence. When Nora stepped inside, the lobby unfolded before her like a living painting. Polished marble floors reflecting crystal lights, the soft scent of white orchids lingering in the air, and the echo of footsteps on the terrazzo making each of her own strides uncomfortably audible. The doorman in his black suit nodded, his eyes briefly scanning Nora's simple attire, enough to make her feel like an intruder in a world that wasn't hers. She extended the silver key, her hand trembling slightly. Penthouse A, she said, forcing calm into her voice. The private elevator doors slid open. As they closed behind her, Nora stood still, her fingers clutching the key until her knuckles whitened. Her heart thundered as if warning her to turn back. But in her mind, Finn's gaunt facey's lips tinged purple on the hospital bed burned away every doubt. She had no choice. The penthouse door opened in silence. Nora almost held her breath. Before her lay a glass palace suspended in the sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panorama of the city Lake Michigan's waters reflecting the evening glow, skyscrapers sparkling with golden light. The decor was minimalist to the point of chill. Black leather chairs, stainless steel tables, abstract paintings hanging as if no one ever truly looked at them. No music, no scent of food, no sign of life. Until a voice rang out from the shadows. "You made it." Ethan Caldwell emerged, holding a tumbler of whiskey, his black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his gaze sharp as a scalpel. "I was betting 60-40 you wouldn't show. Looks like I lose." Nora squared her shoulders, lifting her chin despite the tremor in her legs. "I didn't come for you." "Of course not," Ethan replied with a wry smile. "For your brother." He strode to a sleek side table and pulled out a file. "Let me be direct. I will cover every penny of Finn's surgery, hospital fees, medications, post-op care for a full year in exchange for you becoming my companion." Nora frowned. "Companion? You'll live here, attend events, parties, conferences with me, appear publicly as a perfect tableau. No romance, no emotional entanglement, just a contract." The coldness in Ethan's voice sent a shiver down Nora's spine. She swallowed. "Anything else?" "Nothing unless you want it." "No physical relationship," Nora said firmly. "I am not merchandise." Ethan paused, then chuckled, the low sound like clinking glass. "Fine. No physical relationship. I'm not forcing you." He snapped his fingers, and a legal assistant entered through a side door, placing a contract on the table. Every clause had been meticulously drafted civil terms outlining benefits, financial obligations, and strict confidentiality. They'd prepared it in advance, as if he'd known she'd come. Nora read each line, her heart pounding. This was no longer a game. It was a transaction, a cold bargain without love, without feeling. She stared at the signature line, her hand pausing for a heartbeat. "You don't have to sign," Ethan said softly, "but you know you need this." And she did, not for herself, but for Finn. Nora picked up the pen and set it to the final line. She signed. She said nothing more, yet inside, it felt as though a door had slammed shut forever. She had just sold a piece of herself. Ethan nodded at her. "Welcome to hell in Armani." Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water. Then stay tuned, the story still holds surprises. Comment number 1 if you're enjoying it, so we know you're still here. Nora moved into the penthouse on a gray, overcast Monday morning. She arrived with a small suitcase, carrying the few remnants of her old life, a notebook, a handful of photos of her and Finn, and an old silver necklace her mother had given her. The rest of herself, her pride, her beliefs, even her self-respect had been packed away, locked up, and left behind. Penthouse. A was another world. The air smelled of orchids, expensive mahogany, and something intangible, like arrogance. Nora had everything millions of people only dared to dream of. A wardrobe overflowing with couture evening gowns, designer shoes arranged by color, and jewelry housed in velvet-lined blue boxes. She received a generous allowance, was chauffeured in a private car, and even had a personal stylist schedule her makeup for every outing. Yet beneath all that glitter was a glass cage, transparent but unbreakable. No one truly spoke to her. The chef cooked but never appeared. The housekeeper knocked and disappeared like a ghost. Each meal arrived perfectly plated on the marble table, 3 courses in order, wine at the exact right temperature. But no one sat opposite her. No one asked how she felt. No one laughed. Only the library offered Nora a breath of freedom. She spent hours reading classic hardcovers in Ethan's silent library, first editions of The Great Gatsby, Wuthering Heights, Anna Karenina, fragments of souls lost in a cold, vain world. She saw herself in every page, a Daisy Buchanan who could never return to that green light haze, an Anna who loved with her heart but was crushed by fate. Her sole comfort came from nightly video calls with Finn. Every evening, Nora retreated to her private room and called her brother. "Sis Nora, I'm feeling stronger." Finn beamed, his cheeks rosy and round, as if life itself were returning to him. The doctor had scheduled the surgery, and her mother's tearful thank you calls had come 1,000 times over. But Nora remained silent, clenching the phone, her heart torn. She was doing the right thing, wasn't she? By day, she was Ethan's perfect shadow. At public events, Nora stood beside him like a living sculpture, elegant, alluring, and utterly silent unless spoken to. Ethan coached her on how to nod politely, how to smile just the right amount, how to pour wine for investors without spilling a drop. That evening's event was a charity auction at the Art Institute of Chicago. Nora wore a blood-red silk gown that hugged her figure, shoulders bare to reveal smooth skin. Around her neck hung a string of priceless emeralds, glinting under the lights like dewdrops on a rose petal. Ethan slipped his arm around her waist, his cold gaze sweeping the room like a general surveying the battlefield. "Make Mrs. Eleanor Grant laugh," he whispered, his lips brushing her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "She holds 20% of my company." Nora approached. She didn't know how, but she did it. A clever quip about dessert, a graceful tilt of her head, a sincere glance that melted the ice. Then Mrs. Grant's laughter rang out, a clear sign of victory. Ethan nodded from across the room, his eyes void of any warmth. Nora turned away, a chilled flute of champagne in hand. Every smile, every jest, every flirtatious glance she deployed as a tool was a small stab at her self-respect. She was no longer herself. She was a roly woman designed to serve the machine called Ethan Caldwell. But in that moment, she realized something more important. She was living in a glass cage. And if she wanted to break free, she first had to understand who built it. That night, the Peninsula Hotel shone like an opulent arena for Chicago's elite. On the glass-roofed rooftop, crystal lights danced in champagne flutes and flowing evening gowns, the cello's melody weaving through soft laughter and whispered political intrigue. Nora, in an ivory satin dress, stood beside Ethan like a perfectly polished shadow, quiet, elegant, and full of calculation. Ethan was deep in conversation with a group of Japanese investors while Nora watched silently, learning to read power in a handshake, in an unblinking glance. Then a stranger's voice, deep and as smooth as poison in a glass of red wine, spoke from behind her. "Miss Delaney, you're even more beautiful than they say." Nora turned. It was Julian Voss. Tall, neatly groomed, salt and pepper hair slicked back, his smile twisted like a scar painted in lipstick. Voss, Ethan Caldwell's fierce rival, a ruthless tycoon known for takeovers that shook the financial world. Nora nodded politely, about to turn away, but Voss raised a hand, politely blocking her path in a gesture that felt unsettlingly courteous. "Don't rush off. I'm not here just to dance," he said, his voice a whisper at her ear. She tensed. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." "Oh, but I think we do," he replied with a light laugh, then leaned in to murmur, "I know about your arrangement with Ethan." Nora froze. Her blood felt like ice in her veins. Voss continued, his tone now colder than steel. "You're Caldwell's asset, but assets, you know, can be bought off." He pressed a black business card into her hand, heavy as a verdict. "I'll pay double, triple if necessary. Just one lead his new project, that's all. And your brother will have a trust fund for life. No more hospital bills, no more fear." Nora felt rooted to the spot. The card burned in her hand. Its raised letters gleamed like venomous serpents under the light. Double, a trust fund, freedom. A chance to stop relying on pity or a merciless contract. But at what cost? Betrayal. Selling out Ethan, selling herself. Before she could react, A chill swept the air. Ethan had arrived. He stood a few steps away, his eyes locked on the card in Nora's hand. The business card. She saw his face freeze. For a heartbeat, just a single fleeting moment, all his pride, all that icy detachment melted away. There was no anger, no shout, only emptiness, as if she had stabbed him where no armor could protect him. "Give it to me," Ethan said, his voice low but sharp as steel. A command, not a request. Around them, conversations died down. Voices faded as if their sound was drained away. They all stared at Nora, at Ethan, and at the card in her hand as if it were tinder awaiting a spark. Nora looked at Ethan. She saw the hurt flash in his eyes, quick as lightning, but enough to expose his cold facade. Then she looked down at her own hand. And slowly, without a word, she tore the card to shreds, piece by piece, gently, deliberately, as though ripping temptation itself from her flesh. "No," she said, her voice trembling but her gaze unwavering. "I'm not here for your money, Ethan." She lifted her head, each word driving into the hush. "I'm here because of my promise to my brother, and my soul isn't for sale." Silence. An oppressive, suffocating silence. Ethan stood there, seemingly unable even to breathe. His eyes no longer icy, they were a storm of surprise, of pain, and perhaps of respect. Voss backed away, lips pressed tight like a cut. As for Nora, for the first time, she no longer felt like a pawn in someone else's game. She had chosen a side, and that, above all else, made her heart beat steady once more. After the moment Nora tore the business card and declared that loyalty could not be bought, the atmosphere between her and Ethan shifted not in words or gestures, but in the silences that followed. These silences were no longer tinged with cold detachment, but resonated with acceptance, with an emotion not yet named. Ethan began to speak no longer terse commands or dense financial strategies, but broken, rough, and genuine words. One night, they stood by the glass wall overlooking Lake Michigan. A gentle breeze stirred, and ripples glinted beneath the city lights. Ethan held a glass of whiskey without drinking, gripping it tightly. "I built this penthouse so no one could ever touch me," he said, his gaze distant. "My father was an alcoholic. Every time he drank," my mother cried, "I learned that if I had enough money, I'd never get hurt again." Nora said nothing, but inside, she understood the need to build walls around one's heart just to survive. She began to see Ethan not as a cold billionaire, but as a boy who'd never been truly loved, a man in an iron suit, afraid of pain, a soul trapped in his own glass cage. Then one morning, Ethan summoned her to the library. An envelope lay on the table. He motioned for her to open it. Inside were hospital letters. Finn's surgery had been successful. Nora clenched the papers, tears flooding out like a dam break. But there was more. Ethan retrieved a second envelope and gently placed it before her. "Our contract ends today," he said, his voice low and husky, but no longer commanding. She froze. "What?" "I was wrong, Nora," he continued. "You proved there are things money can't buy, like loyalty, like kindness." He paused, his eyes shifting as if waiting. "This is for Finn." She opened the envelope. Inside was a trust transfer document for $500,000, no conditions, no strings attached. "No." She shook her head, her hand shaking. "I can't." "You can, and you deserve it." Ethan smiled, not the icy grin she knew, but one weary yet gentle. "Because you taught me that kindness can heal, even someone like me." Nora burst into tears. Not for the money, but for the man before her. No longer a phantom of power and control. He had changed, and it was she who had unlocked that door. "Thank you," she whispered. "But why?" "Because for the first time," Ethan said, "I knew who I want to be." He apologized, true from the heart, not for reputation or image. And for the first time, he called her Nora, no longer Miss Delaney. No distance remained. The story ended where it began in Bronzeville. Nora returned home and embraced Finn. He beamed more brightly than ever, his healthy heart pounding strong beneath his cotton shirt. She looked at her mother, gratitude shining in her eyes. They needed no penthouse, no evening gowns, only each other and life itself. Ethan was no longer a ghost, no longer a condition. He was a friend-a-man learning to love slowly, step by step, in a world where he once thought vulnerability was a weakness. This story isn't just about money or power. It's about what stands above all: integrity, forgiveness, and the miracle born of kindness. If this story has moved your heart, please subscribe, comment below, and share this video with your friends and family in the United States. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. If you believe kindness can heal the world, leave a heart and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next inspiring journey.